Hey everybody, and welcome to RachAquarelle Arts, and I am doing another video as part of my daily holiday art series. So every day from the day after Thanksgiving until Christmas Day, I am doing a video in which I demonstrate a project that pertains somehow to Christmas or winter or the holidays in general. And today I have another fun illustration inspired by one of my favorite Christmas movies, Elf. And I am doing a little illustration of Buddy the Elf, and he is giving a lesson on the 4 food groups. So very, very important. I've been having a lot of fun just kind of thinking back through all the movies that I enjoy around the holiday and trying to come up with ways to kind of depict the spirit of the movies without actually, copying the characters or copying directly from a scene or anything like that. So I have Buddy here, Buddy the Elf. He's holding up a very informative chart on the 4 food groups. I decided to make it a food pyramid, but instead of a pyramid, it's a food Christmas tree. So you may know if you've seen the movie that the 4 food groups for elves are candy, candy canes, candy corns, and syrup. So I put the candies at the bottom of the pyramid, and then on the next tier, I have candy canes and candy corns, and then way up at the top, I tried to draw a little bottle of syrup. It's really, really small though. So that was my sketch, and the sketch is going to be available to you as a template that you can print, and you can use that to transfer it onto your own paper. That's available to you for free. There's a link in the description of this video to my Gumroad page where you can download that and you can print it, and then you can do this project. And right now I'm just using my transfer paper to transfer that onto my watercolor paper. I decided to make this pretty small. Okay, so I'm using India ink and my dip pen here, but any waterproof ink will work. And if you don't have waterproof ink, then you can just do the inking last, although you may want to make the transfer lines dark enough for you to see them if you choose to do that. So I decided to try to kind of cartoon Buddy and sort of make him look like Will Ferrell a little bit. So hopefully I pulled that off. I kept looking at it like, is this creepy or cute? Sometimes it's hard to tell, right? So I have him holding a big candy cane. It's like a big pointer, and he is going to be giving us a lesson on these very important food groups. And I'm leaving a little bit of space in between the different sections on the food Christmas tree so that I can kind of paint a green border around everything so it looks more like a Christmas tree here. So I tried to keep this fairly simple. You might have noticed when I was doing the sketch, I was doing some funny things with my hands, and that's because I'm not so great at drawing hands. Even cartoon hands are a little bit difficult. So I was modeling my own hand so I could at least loosely get the hand positions looking okay. Okay, so I'm done with the ink, at least for now. In the end, I did decide to write down toward the bottom of the illustration Buddy's 4 food groups, so I'll be doing that kind of at the end. And I'm going to be using really simple colors for this. Again, I'm just trying to use up all these colors on this palette so that I can kind of just have on my palette the colors I'm actually using. I think that having all these wells filled up, it's just like information overload a little bit. Okay, so I decided to do something a little bit different. And one of my favorite things to do that I feel like I haven't done lately is to actually mix colors by glazing. And it's just one of my favorite things to do with watercolor because watercolor is such a great medium for glazing because it's so transparent. So everything that I want to be green, I'm actually going to initially paint yellow. And you could do this the other way too. You could paint it like a light or medium blue. And then you could glaze over it with yellow, but I chose to lay down some yellow and I'll go over it with some blue a little bit later. So right now I'm mixing up a skin color. So this is basically just going to be yellow and red. I'm just trying to keep it fairly light. I don't really want him to look orange. But you do have to keep in mind that when watercolor is wet and freshly applied, it does look a little bit more vivid than it will end up looking in the end. Now for his face, I am using that same wash, and you'll notice I'm going over his hair, and that's going to make him look a little bit weird for a little while. But I feel like that's a good base layer for his hair, which is kind of like a reddish brown. And while the paint on his face is still wet, I'm going to drop in a little bit of red to give him some rosy cheeks and kind of a red nose. And when I drop it in, you can see it almost makes him look like a clown, and it's a little intense. But I'm just going to leave it, and you'll see that when it dries, it won't be nearly as intense. And now I'm just adding some more pigmented yellow to his hat and his coat. And then I should have done this earlier when I was painting the rest of him yellow, but I'm painting all the spots on this food Christmas tree yellow because I will also glaze that. My poor little puppy is snoozing behind me, so you might hear her snoring. So you can already tell that his face is looking a little bit less clownish. And right now I'm just going back in with a little bit of red, and I'm kind of just dry brushing in a few areas that I want to soften up a little bit. But I'm trying to keep that red pretty light at this point. And now I'm adding a little bit more pigment to his nose and also to his cheeks just a little bit. And then he has this little red ribbon sticking out of his cap. So I want to make sure I don't forget about that. And now I'm just going to start working a little bit on the details of some of the candies. So I'm putting a few really loose stripes on his candy cane pointer. And it's kind of covering up the candy cane section on his food Christmas tree pyramid, but that's okay. This is just for fun. And I'm just looking for other candies to paint red. So these are supposed to be licorice. On the section for candies, I kind of had a hard time. I should have just did a Google search of like random candies because I was having a hard time even thinking of what to put there. All I could think of was like Snickers bars. Okay, so here comes the fun part where I get to glaze over, and you can see we already have this like beautiful green. And this is why I love glazing so much, because these colors are so beautiful and transparent, and it almost just looks like it was a mixed green, but this is just blue going on top of dry yellow. And what I like about this too is it allows me, rather than doing just a wash of green that I mixed on my palette, I can actually play a little bit more with the texture and make it a little bit more uneven by glazing. So there's some areas where I can leave a little bit more yellow poking through, areas where I can add more blue. And then I will go ahead and get his hat. And just like I forgot to do the yellow on the Christmas tree, when I was doing the yellow on Buddy, I'm going to forget to go ahead and glaze over the tree, but that's what you can do. You can go ahead and glaze over the yellow parts on the tree food pyramid. And now I'm just giving him a little bit more definition with some more pigmented blue. And now I'm going to finally paint his hair. So you can see he kind of looks a little bit weird right now. And to paint his hair, I basically just want to mix up a nice neutral color. So I'm just kind of adding all my primaries together until I get the right balance. And his hair is kind of reddish brown. So I'm going to start with more of a neutral brown, and then I'll just add a little bit more red to it after I put in this initial layer. So already he's looking a lot better with some hair in place. And then I added just a little bit more red, and I'm just adding a few accents that are barely perceptible, but I think it helps. And then I didn't want to forget about his eyebrows. And now I'm going to give him some red lips. So I'm just kind of painting a little bit of red just right around the outline of his mouth, because I didn't really draw lips in, but I wanted to add a little bit of color there just to balance out his face. And now I'm adding a little bit of red to his fingertips, because I just think that adds a little bit of nice color variation. And adding a little bit of definition to his hands as well. And then Buddy the Elf has some forehead wrinkles, so I just kind of lightly brushed in some forehead wrinkles, just for fun. And now I'm just going to do my best to paint the candies. I'm not going to be too particular about how this is done. So for the syrup, I'm just going to kind of paint it this brownish color. And then the rest of the candies, I'll just kind of make it up as I go. I kind of forgot what candy corn looked like, so I had to Google it so that I could actually paint them accurately. And now I'm just using that blue to glaze over that Christmas tree. The Food Pyramid Christmas tree. And I think that looks pretty nice so far. And this is probably where I'm Googling how to do candy corn. So if you don't know, candy corn is white at the very tip, and then it is yellow at the other end, and then in the middle it's orange. And then I'm just putting a few like little color dots all around the candy. I don't know. I guess I thought later like, oh, I should have put some gummy bears in here or something. So those little dots are gummy bears apparently. Again, just a few little splashes of color since that's the biggest section. And then for the candy bar, I basically am just going to, I sort of did just go and look at like a Snickers bar, and they're kind of, the wrapper is kind of brown around the edge, and then the Snickers part is blue, so I just put a little splash of blue. I didn't try to like write Snickers or anything like that. Okay, so at this point I'm thinking that I'm done painting, but I'm going to change my mind right after I get everything cleaned up, because I decided that this is just looking a little bit too plain, and I decided to paint the background red. But now I'm actually thinking like there's some space at the bottom, and I kind of at the beginning even wanted to write something, but I wasn't sure what, and I wasn't sure that I'd really have room. And now that I can see that I definitely do, I decided just to write Buddy's 4 food groups at the bottom, and not using any kind of font for this, because I guess when I think of Buddy the Elf, I think of him as being kind of like childish. So I'm just going to use some handwriting, make it look a little bit fun and childish. And so now for this background that I'm going to put around him, it's just going to be my Purell red. This is kind of like my brightest, boldest red. And then around Buddy the Elf, I'm just going to leave a little tiny bit of white between him and the background, just, you know, to add a little bit of separation. I don't want this to feel like too cluttered. And I feel like sometimes just leaving a little bit of white space makes things feel a little bit more roomy somehow. So it's just a little bit of white space around him. And I think that helps. So now I just have to wait for that to dry a little bit. I'll go ahead and remove the tape. And then I'm going to add the Buddy's 4 food groups to the bottom of this. Now it didn't look like I waited to do this, but I did. I paused my camera and then just came back when it was dry. So I'm penciling it in to make sure I don't accidentally spell anything wrong or like miss a letter. That's what usually happens. It's not like really a spelling error sometimes. It's just like if you go straight in with ink, you'll just end up like forgetting a letter. And then after I have the black ink in, I decided that it's just kind of not standing out enough. So I'll go back over this with my white gel pen as well, just to give it a little bit more contrast. And that really is basically it for this project. It was, again, really fun to just kind of think about something a little bit different to do. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you'll go ahead and go get that template for yourself and give this a try. I think it's really fun. And if you wouldn't mind, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel, give this video a like, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Thanks!